Taking a Walk.
We've spent many years playing to sometimes just the bar staff at a bar, So it's definitely hard won, but that also ties us to our supporters and these people that come out and spend their time and energy on us. We're tied together in a very emotional way. It's super meaningful, and I think the relationships that you can form with music lovers is huge, and it keeps us going. It's the joy of our life to be able to go out and connect with people.
Rebecca and Megan, Larkin Poe, so great to have you on the Takin A Walk podcast.
It is so fun to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Take me back, both of you sitting at a piano with your mom, learning to sing. What do you remember about that important moment in your career?
Our mom grew up singing with her siblings. So harmony was always a big part of our musical heritage, I guess you could say. Our mom grew up listening to a lot of folk artists and grew up in the land of Dolly Parton. So I think that siblings singing together was a big part of her growing up as well. So she sat down and taught us to sing. There's 4 siblings all together, but the 3 sisters are the ones that sang together. So Rebecca and I and our older sister, we learned to sing harmony before we could even read.
And it's a pivotal moment that really shaped both of you, right?
Yeah, at the time, I guess we weren't even considering it as a career, because it was a very special gift that our mother gave us from 3 and 4 years old. Our parents allowing us to start taking classical violin and piano lessons, and making music such an integral part of our household. And again, like, even from our parents' perspective, I don't think that they were ever intending us to treat music as a livelihood. It was just a joy that they experienced and wanted us to be able to have use of a language, the language of music.
I feel so fortunate that music really was a part of our daily lives, and they instilled in us a love of music. And they listened to all different kinds of music, from rock to jazz to bluegrass to classical music,
world music, all across the board,
and hard rock. Yeah, so we grew up having kind of a diverse love.
Well, I feel like as Larkin Poe has evolved, I really feel that you're really not typecast in terms of genre, in my view. I think you are a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you're constantly exploring. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. And it's interesting as well. I think the older that we get, I'll speak from my perspective, the older that I get, when I look back at our track record, so many of the pivotal moments in our career, or the practices that have ultimately shaped us the most, were very rarely intentional, or were very rarely like, a means to an end. Like, I think about the fact that Megan and I for years have started, and maintained a YouTube channel where we cover a wide variety of songs. And we started out doing that just for fun, just as a way, like, in between tours, for us to stay fresh and sharp, and go and learn a Tom Petty song, go and learn a Black Sabbath song, go and learn a Pat Metheny song, go and learn a Steve Morse song. And that was sort of like our way of educating ourselves further in the language of music. But I think as a result, and we never would have premeditated this, that people view us, I think, as less attached to genre, because they know us for our original material, and they also know us for covering anything from rockabilly to hard rock from our YouTube series. So I think that has actually somewhat unexpectedly been such a boon to us in allowing Larkin Poe to kind of skate on, like, the surface of a very broad musical lake. And in that way, it's like such a gift.
Also, we played for a long time, and we're kind of mentored by Elvis Costello. And that's also a man who has a very diverse career in terms of genre. And it allows him to change it up and keep himself fresh. And he kind of imparted that wisdom onto us, like, don't box yourselves in. Try and keep audiences guessing a little bit, so that you can be at the forefront of your own game.
Talk about some other career turning points that have really sort of continued to free you creatively.
I feel 2017 is a big one. 2017 is the year that we self-produced our first record together, Peach, and we started our record label. And that really has been one of the single most impactful moments of our career, because it was a very intimidating move to make, and it felt a little bit foolhardy. I think both my sister and I, even for being touring musicians in the entertainment field, we're fairly risk averse, even though you would think otherwise. Like, it's a very risky line of work to try and make a buck in. But being able, I think, to come together as a team and be like, you know what, we're going to jump off this cliff. We're gonna do it ourselves. We've always known from the beginning that we've had very strong creative opinions. Clearly, our mother and our father raised us to to do what we want to do when we want to do it, and for that I'm eternally grateful, because it has allowed us, I think, to reach that point in our career and have the sense of self and the faith to take that leap and start our own label and start producing our own records. And that was really our first taste of pure, unfettered creative freedom. And there's no going back for us now.
Where did you get the desire to always seek continuous improvement? Is that from your parents? I know they were in sort of the medical field, right?
They were both in the medical field, and both very much do-it-yourselfers. And both of them have a very strong drive and work ethic. So I do think that we got a lot of that from them. And I think it's also helped to have a little bit of sibling rivalry as well. In healthy and unhealthy ways, but mostly healthy. I think that we push each other, and there's no resting on laurels when you've got somebody beside you who really knows you and kind of wants to see you improve as well. So I think we do push each other.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. That's very fair to say. And I agree. I think that is a blessing and a curse, because I think especially in the music industry of today's time, where there is such a hand in glove relationship with social media. And so there's always this upping of the ante. There's this image conscious, this never resting 24-hour news cycle approach to the creative arts at this point, that sometimes I think, because we do have a very high expectation of the kind of work that we can do together as a team, that finding those moments where it's like, you know what, hey, actually, we need to dial back the self-criticism. We need to dial back sort of the always on. Because I think back to, when we were in our early teens, late teens, we would have uninterrupted hours of time to sit and hone our craft, just sitting and noodling on our instruments, sitting and toying with a song. And nowadays, like, the ratio of time, it's so weighted in, like, our calendar is full. We have so much stuff to do. There's these extra pressures that I think, if you don't keep it in check, if you don't keep that work ethic of running a band, running a business, running a record label, being a touring musician, the work side of busy work, you have to keep that in an appropriate relationship to the meat of our work, which is being creative, which is being musicians. And that, I think, is something that we're, especially in our 30s now, that we have arrived at this new point in time where we're trying to be super intentional about dialing back some of that push, and be like, you know what, actually, let's make sure our priorities are in line.
Rebecca, what's the one thing Megan does to push you to greater heights? And then conversely, Megan, what's the thing Rebecca does to push you?
The thing that I love about, one of the many, many things that I love about my sister, is Megan doesn't mince the truth. That I think in our relationship, I sense that Megan really respects me to handle the truth from her. And so she will give me her undiluted truth, that in some ways for me, like, I'm definitely like a little bit more of a PR agent, like, well, how can we, like, the room was basically sold out, you know what I mean? That kind of an energy, a little bit of a used cars like salesman energy, but she's not that. Megan is like the world of tables and chairs, and like, this is how I see it. I'm going to tell you how I see it. And so sometimes when I can get like, as a little sis, I'll get like super in my head about my prowess as an instrumentalist, or my body image, or like all the things that I think can get distorted. Again, speaking back to social media, you can kind of get in your head and have a warped view of reality. And I appreciate Megan, to the best of her ability, bringing me back to the reality as she sees it. And I trust this woman. I really do. So that's one thing that I feel super, super grateful for. And the way that she continues to educate me, to be like, hey, just take it as it comes, breathe, relax, think about this from a different perspective. It's all perspective. And I respect your ability to tap into that.
We are very different people, but I think that we mirror each other very well. That we're kind of like puzzle pieces a little bit. So different, and yet we fit together. And I think that I am a very concrete person, but to match that, you need somebody who has their head in the clouds a little bit, somebody who's like wants to jump in and take action. And that's something that Rebecca is really good at. She is very much a move forward, like momentum is king, and you've got to get started on the journey in order to continue. Like, I think it's really important to remember that you've got to, the hardest part is starting something. And she's very good at starting, and sometimes has to drag me along a little bit, maybe. But also it's been really good for me to be in that energy, because I think that I sometimes want to research something to death before I even get started. And sometimes you just have to jump in and learn trial by fire, sink or swim.
So I love your fascination with the technical aspects of your playing, the relationship that you have with beard, instruments, and just sort of those nuances there. I had Skunk Baxter on many months ago on the podcast, and he talked about how he sort of reverse engineered certain versions of guitars and kind of, had that sort of mindset. Are you both wired sort of that way as far as the technical aspects of the instruments?
I would say no, but then there is evidence that would speak contrarily to that no. As it relates to like our pedal boards or effects pedals or amplifiers, we're very we're very low maintenance when it comes to that kind of stuff. We like to find something that works and then stick. Like, we're not the kind of touring musicians who are like, oh, I went to like a guitar shop in St. Louis and found this new fuzz and I'm going to dismantle my board and put a new. Like, we like the consistency. I think especially because we've toured for so many years and had so much stuff break, and like the pressure of shaking up the ghosts in the machine. We want the ghosts to just rest. Just don't talk to the ghosts, don't acknowledge the ghosts, and the thing will just work. But when it comes to the creativity of engineering a new instrument, shout out to Megan for, reverse engineering her instrument and starting a new line of slide guitars called Electrolige.
Because I would say that I'm not a tweaky deaky kind of a person, but I do know what I'm looking for, and I'm going to be very, very picky until I get to that point where I feel satisfied. And I think that you're the same. You know what you're looking for. I don't really care how we get there, just as long as we get there, and then I want to stick with that. So for a long time, have played Rickenbacker lap steels, which are just incredible, and I love them. They're very, very heavy instruments. So I was finding that it was impacting me on a day-to-day basis touring. So I just wanted basically my Rickenbacker, except light, and made more for standing and running around the stage. So I worked with beard guitars, and we were able to develop this lap steel that's half the weight of the Electrolige, yet it still has that tone that I'm looking for and is shaped better for standing on stage.
Amazing, I got to tell you. How did your life change when you discovered the dobro and the lap as well?
Oh, definitely changed my life. I heard Jerry Douglas playing, and we had grown up listening to a lot of Alison Krauss and Union Station featuring Jerry Douglas. So I had that sound in my head, but it wasn't until I actually saw a dobro being played that I really connected the dots. I was like, oh, this is the instrument I've been searching for. I'm a relatively quiet person. I don't sing lead. I sing harmony to Rebecca, who sings lead. So I think I was always searching for my voice in an instrument. And lap steel, dobro, these slide instruments, I think have such a vocal quality to them. It's like a fingerprint. I feel like the way that people play slides, it's very unique in the speed of the vibrato and the way that the slide touches the strings. It's very human, I think. So I was extremely drawn to that, seeking that in my life.
I love that. It's amazing. Jerry Douglas is amazing too. Who are some other folks that have influenced the both of you that to this day you learn from, either from observing them or your interactions in person with them?
In terms of other artists, definitely shout out Jerry. Jerry Douglas is just, I mean, I remember like Slide Rule was such a pivotal record for us. And we learned every melody. At the time, I was playing mandolin. So I learned all the mandolin solos and stuff, and just a great, great piece of work that was really important for us. We have to shout out once again Elvis Costello. He has had an indelible impact on our career and who we are as people. He's become a very dear friend and mentor. So we got to shout out Elvis. Who else comes to your mind? I'm actually curious.
We have, in the last, I would say, decade, been super influenced by blues music, because we grew up listening to a lot of Allman Brothers and going back and sort of researching who was influencing like Southern rock music. And so we love Skip James and Son House, really inspired by some of the Delta blues musicians.
Yeah, that is kind of a fascinating point of conversation. The fact that a lot of the records that we are seeking inspiration from and that have influenced the way that we write. I mean, clearly anybody who listens to our records could say that we make music that is adjacent to the blues. We are not a blues band. But so many of these artists, Son House, Skip James, Muddy, like the Three Kings, these are the guys that we're listening to and taking tips of writing, tips of tone, tips of expression. And these are people that we'll never rub shoulders with on the physical plane. So it is really special to meet individuals like out on the touring circuit. And we run into so many thoughtful, considerate, kind humans out on the festival circuit, increasingly so many more women out on the touring circuit that I feel like it's sort of like the collective toolbox where everyone's like, hey, have you thought about this? Have you tried this? How do you feel when you're on stage and you're sick? Or just like random information that we're constantly all gleaning from those that have committed their lives to the road as we have. But again, it is sort of like that spiritual, like the realm of, like, I think of Chris Whitley. He's a huge inspiration to me. And he died before I was born. I think of Ozzy Osbourne, who odds are I'm never going to meet Ozzy Osbourne, but the impact that his music has had on my life is huge. So that's a very fun question to like think about how we glean impact from people around us, if it's on a spiritual level or if it really is like, hey, Elvis is our buddy and I'm going to call him up and get advice on something. It's neat, the many myriad ways in which we can all impact one another in this world.
Yeah, I thought of three either artists or bands that, when I listened to the vibe of Larkin Poe, that I wondered about whether you'd researched it all. One is Little Feat, just due to once again this incredible musicianship that they have and that you guys have. I thought of Ry Cooder as well, who once again the vibe and the stellar musicianship matches what Larkin Poe is certainly all about. Does that resonate with you at all? Those
hugely, yes.
Who was the third?
Yeah, I'm just looking up into the air and it floated above me. So when it comes down,
no worries. I'm just curious because that is exactly the space, like the space between Little Feat, Rye Cooter, and like, what would you add as a third point? Maybe the Crows, maybe the Black Crows. It's like, because we want to rock, we want to get on stage and kick ass, but we don't want to shred. Like neither my sister or I are like, we need to have 1,000 notes in order to like prove a point. We're definitely in, like, I think of the melodies that Rye Cooter writes with his guitar. And I think of the lyrical depth of a band like Little Feat, where it's like you can crawl inside the story and get a little piece of the human experience. So that's a really great little trilogy for us. Thank you. That's such kind compliments.
and I did think of the third one. I'm embarrassed. You're probably for forgetting briefly gonna, hang up on me, but Bonnie Raitt.
Oh, Bonnie
Yes.
Raitt, the queen
We
mother.
love Bonnie Raitt. Yeah. And especially as a female slide player, I revere Bonnie. She was doing something in her time that nobody was doing. There's nobody who looked like her playing the way that she did. So yeah, huge respect.
So I love the version of "Running Down a Dream" that you do on the Petty collection, and it's also in Bad Monkey. It's amazing. I think "Running Down a Dream" is one of those greatest driving songs, certainly of all time. What are some of your favorite driving songs as well?
Oh, another running song, "Running on Empty," is a huge one for me.
That's a great driving song.
Featuring David Lindley, of course, on lap steel, playing one of the most iconic guitar solos of all time. I think that's a great driving song.
I'm gonna actually, this is sort of a random one, but anytime we drive into Little Rock, we have to listen to Little Rock by Colin Ray. Do you know that song?
I do not.
Think I'm on a roll here in Little Rock. Like anytime you cross the state line, like out of Tennessee, it's like, all right, crank up Colin Ray, let's go. So that's a huge driving song for me. Yeah, it's a big one.
That's a good one. Tell me about your creative process in the studio. Take us inside that. How does that work? What's the give and take of it? Give us a little glimpse of that.
I would describe it as ever evolving. I think, especially as kids of the 90s and growing up with the advent of GarageBand and Logic, our relationship to recording is like constantly on the move. We in early Larkin Poe days, we've recorded live records. We've recorded records in our bedrooms using laptops to program drums. But most recently, we've phased into attempting as much as possible to try and represent who we are on the live stage in the studio. So we've definitely done a lot of live tracking, but I think the goal for us is to do an all live record because there is something unique, and you used the word earlier, fingerprint. There's a fingerprint of spiritual energy that exists when humans make music together, which I think is truly the antidote to AI's participation in music creation that AI can never recreate. The unique energy of humans responding spontaneously with one another in the live space that increasingly I would have such an interest in trying to capture on our records. But there is also budgetary limitations. We've actually made the last, 4 or 5 of our records in our home studio, and it's a very petite space. So being able to have everyone set up in a circle and tracking together, it's just not physically possible due to our spatial limitations. But we're really excited. We're in process of building a recording studio so that hopefully Larkin Poe records in the future will be able to be performed live with the appropriate isolation. We'll have a booth to put Megan, a booth to put me, drummer in the live room, and everyone looking at each other and capturing those live performances.
Mm-hmm.
Are you mentoring anybody on the label these days?
We have actually not branched out into mentoring at this point. in terms of signing an artist or producing another artist. But I feel that that is something that I think that we will have a passion for. And I think that we would be really well suited as a team to work with an artist in that capacity. Right now, I feel like we're maxed.
Yeah.
We're maxed out.
We're so busy as handling everything Larkin Poe. But once we have a little bit more time, I feel like we would love to devote some energy to mentoring the next generation of music makers. That would be incredibly meaningful.
I'm excited for that. And that I think is the one thing that I do find a lot of like comfort and excitement in is that even though being a touring musician, it comes with a very unique set of stressors, the unpredictability of the work, some of the sacrifices that it requires. The thing that it really gives, the gifts it gives in spades are the fact that it's ever changing. Within the next 5-10 years, the kind of work that we're doing, it'll still be creative work, but it may look very different. And I'm super excited for the future in that respect.
I love how you've built your fan base and worked so hard at it. Almost, it seems, is it fair to say, in a one fan at a time sort of basis. Can you talk a little bit about how you built the fan base?
It was person by person by person. Our 20s were definitely dedicated towards a huge grassroots effort. I feel like we went everywhere and played to 5 people, and would come back through a city and there's a few more people, and come back through again and there's a few more. And then there's a little bit of a snowball effect that has happened over the past few years, where we were suddenly like jumping up and selling out places and selling out entire tours. And that was extremely exciting, especially considering that we've spent many years playing to sometimes just the bar staff at a bar, So it's definitely hard won, but that also ties us to our supporters and these people that come out and spend their time and energy on us. We're tied together in a very emotional way. And it's super meaningful, and I think the relationships that you can form with music lovers is huge, and it keeps us going. It's the joy of our life to be able to go out and connect with people.
In closing, then, and I think you sort of already led to this, how do you describe musical happiness?
Musical happiness. Oh my gosh, you are so good at your job. That is a wonderful question. And I'm really curious to hear what we each have to say. Do you have a little neural synapses firing off?
For me, musical happiness, I think, is time to experiment, to create something new that then can go out into the world and mean something to somebody else. I think that musical happiness is me creating something within myself that then doesn't belong to me anymore.
Ooh, I love that. I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to go introspective, because I was actually, what first popped into my mind this was maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. Megan and I backed up you played dobro and lap steel, and I played mandolin. One of our heroes, we love T-Bone Burnett, and T-Bone released an incredible record, and he played a scattering of shows in the Southeast. And so we were able to come out and support him on one as part of his band. And it was such a cool experience to sit acoustically on the stage. And it was Megan to my left, and there was an upright bass player, Dennis Crouch, to my right. And there was a fiddle player across the stage, and everyone was playing in concert together, and it was acoustic, because clearly we're playing a rock and roll show as Larkin Poe the majority of the time, which requires there to be like the introduction of tech, where we're wearing in-ears so that we can actually have isolation over the drums, because for years we toured on monitors where you have speakers on the stage blasting sound at you, and I was routinely singing my voice out, trying to sing over the drums. So I think by necessity, some of our touring implements create a little bit of a barrier between us and the music, just by nature of kind of like the way the world turns and the way you're able to do the amount of shows that we book. But I think in the future for some Larkin Poe tours, I would want to recreate that intimacy, because again, it was a bunch of humans sitting within feet of each other, and the sound waves coming from one human to the next was impacting all of us and our chemistry on stage, which in turn was spilling over, and to speak to your point as well, touching the audience. So I think being able to create that kind of a musical experience on stage, which you and I share all the time. I feel so blessed to be able to sit literally right next to one of my best friends and play music that is instinctual. And so rarely we're able to carry that out on stage in its purest raw form for a crowd. And I think that'll be really cool at some point in the future. So that's musical happiness to me.
So would you say it's a conversation?
Yes.
Yeah.
When music is allowed to be a conversation, when it's not too premeditated, there's not too much tech involved, there isn't pressure. Musical happiness is when it's conversational.
Well, Rebecca and Megan, for me, podcasting happiness is, this is an example of it. I get to do it frequently, and this is one of those moments that I'm so grateful for. And I'm grateful for the music you continue to give us. And thank you for being on the Takin A Walk podcast.
Thank
you so much.
Appreciate it.